Three, two, one, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Forest podcast, a podcast from three Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is our first episode of our limited series about Ahsoka, where we talk about every episode one by one. We're very excited to talk about this, but even more excited that as we get to reunite with our family from the Ghost, we also get to reunite the entire Triad family because good news, Bo is joining us for this limited
Welcome,
series
welcome,
edition.
welcome back.
Welcome, Bo!
Well, thank you for having me all back. It's amazing to be back.
Of course, it's like Luke said in the Last Jedi. No one's ever really gone, and
Yes, we
you
were always in the shadows. just
you're
like,
always always in the light, waiting
like,
to
waiting.
waiting to come
Especially
back.
to talk about Ahsoka, because
Exactly.
it's a character that we've loved for, since Clone Wars and then Rebels, and then to get to talk about it, and we know that it's gonna get weird, and we know you love weird, Mo.
It is. It's the weirdness. I think that's probably what brought me back out of the.
That's what I wanted to ask. It's just because I know we were talking about this we were texting randomly this week, and all of a sudden, like out of the blue, you texted like, "Hey, can I come back to be able to talk about Ahsoka?" And I was just like, "Oh wait, if Mo wants to talk about this, it means that hopefully it's because of how much they're enjoying it and not how much they hate it." It's just like, yeah. So I want to come back to take a dump on it. I hope that's not the case. So I'm very, very excited to hear your thoughts to see what made you come back to want to talk about this show. However, we can't start talking about Ahsoka without obviously mentioning the context in which we're recording the show, and as we're recording this during the WGA and SAG after strikes, and we're not releasing this. I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this, it means we did release it, but you notice that we're not releasing it as the show has been coming out. We're gonna hold these episodes and not release them as in support for all those strikes. So it goes without saying that us here at the Triad support everything that the WGA and SAG-AFTRA are striking for, and all that their demands against all the studios and producers, without the labor of all the actors and writers that make these shows like this Ahsoka and Rebels and Acolyte that's upcoming and everything that we've come to enjoy wouldn't exist. So we want stories made by humans for humans about the human experience. We don't want stories written by robots and AI about what they think the human experience is based on an algorithm. So yeah, we support them and won't be releasing this until they get a fair deal and get what they deserve. So we stand by the WG.
We still wanted to record right after episodes were released, though, because we want to keep that excitement of the episode by episode experience. So we are recording it as they happen, but
yeah,
everything gets resolved and human get what they deserve for the jobs that they are doing.
Oh yeah.
So that's a little intro. Let's start talking about Ahsoka.
Yes.
Mo.
Episodes 1 and 2, Master and Apprentice and Toil and Trouble.
Mo, what made you want to come back? Like what? I mean, you saw Mandalorian season 3 probably, and that didn't give you the impetus to be like, hey, let's talk about this show. But all of a sudden, Ahsoka comes out, and you see those 2 episodes, and you're like, I need to talk about this. Tell us your reaction then, like what you thought about watching the show, and like what made you want to come back to discuss it.
Well, I think if though for those listeners from the beginning, they might remember, Rebels was my jam. I always I was always in love with Rebels, the way the story was portrayed, the difference that comes from all the other Star Wars stories we've been acquainted to. It was the first, at least in my experience, the first big thing that's breaking away from the Skywalker saga. And this and it works in so many levels. It portrays all of the essence of what Star Wars is. And the moment I saw Ahsoka it's almost like the continuation of Rebels. This is
Yep,
what
very much.
it's pretty much what it is. Like it picks up where we left off in Rebels. Ahsoka coming back for Sabine to like, hey, let's go save Ezra and take down Tron if we can in the way.
Oh, oh Lord. Yeah.
And seeing that, like for the longest time, like we had no idea we will ever get to see like the true ending of that. Like it's not technically needed for like the other things that were going on in Star Wars. Like they could just like, that was the ending. Like
Yeah,
to your
that's what you get.
imagination. Yeah, deal with it.
Yep.
Like we've got plenty of media that done that. Like so it's not unheard of. And
Oh,
then
yeah. Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, like we are actually getting like the whole story back. We're getting the gang back, and so I texted you even before I saw the
Oh,
episode.
so this was before
Yeah,
watching it. I thought it was. I thought it was like after watching. It's like, oh crap! I
It was
must. I
just from
must.
anticipation.
Mhm.
No, it was just like I like that's how under the cavern I was, that I didn't know like Ahsoka came on until my brother showed me a picture with like he went to Galaxy Quest and got his like star like
Mhm.
lightsaber, and he was like, "Oh, I'm ready." I'm like, "Ready for what?" Like, oh,
I'm
Ahsoka comes out today. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I need to see that." So I got to see them both, and it was a ride. It was an experience, that's for sure. I Everything that's new, it's mesmerizing. That's for sure.
Mhm.
I I want to see what happens. So, like, finally, we're going to a whole different galaxy. That's just
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
like there's a galaxy far, 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 far away. Like we're expanding our universe here.
Right. Which is kind of
Yeah.
like breaking some of the theories that people had about, because myself included, I thought that when people were talking about where Thrawn and Ezra were, everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, myself included, were like, oh, they're in the unknown regions, and
Yeah,
we just have to like get them from there. But they're still in the Star Wars galaxy, so to speak. So when that reveal occurred, with like when they opened the bronze
Yeah.
ball or whatever the hell that's called, and it's just like, oh, no, 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 it's a different galaxy.
it's a different galaxy.
It was like, oh shit! Now there are different rules, because like now
Yeah. It
anything
opens up
Yeah,
so many
yeah,
anything
possibilities.
goes.
anything is
Yeah.
possible, and I love that the link. There's like this like undisclosed and like unnamed link between
Hmm.
this new galaxy and the Sisters of Dathomir,
Hmm. Hmm.
which
Hmm.
Right.
is like there seems to be like, oh, we're gonna learn where this whole like new type of force comes from. Like it might be like maybe we'll learn that the force is only a thing from this galaxy, and then there's
Yeah.
some other type of force. Like we don't
Hmm.
know the physics or the
Right.
the minutia of like the force. Like so we might just be on the verge of experiencing like chaos and in a good way, like
Yeah.
bring back that childhood wonder of like, holy like we're this the force, this is how it works. Like no, like everything like it brings back that Han Solo saying like, you don't know how this force works, like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like
Everything
we'll
you
never
thought
get
you knew was wrong.
everything you knew. Yes, it's
Yep.
wrong. And I can't wait to see like that exploration, but like the anticipation, the build up, the bringing of characters.
Hmm.
I do have to say, like at first, I was like, there's like the like I don't know, a reverse uncanny valley from like
Hmm.
bringing like animated characters into like
Hmm.
Yeah.
live
Hmm.
action. Like I don't know, it's still like at least the first episode for me was still like a bit jarring.
Hmm. Hmm.
I it like I'm like but by the end of the second episode, I was like, okay, okay. My brain was like, okay, you smooth over the differences, you can reconcile the animation and the
Hmm.
action, but everything else, like I'm just like for it. Like I'm
Awesome.
to see this whole rabbit hole of the
And
alien.
we'll definitely dig into more of the minutia. But I want to shift now a little bit to Nani, because Nani, I think, I mean, we haven't really gotten into it because I think we wanted to like be fresh when we were talking about the show here. But I feel like you're not as enthused maybe as Mo and I
Yeah.
are. So why don't you tell us like
Uh,
your reaction to watching the show?
yeah. So I've had, my expectations about the show, I wasn't all that excited about it to begin with. To be honest, if you've heard me, I've gone ad nauseum as about I don't think Rosario Dawson is really pulling off the Ahsoka that I wanted to see, the Ahsoka
Mm.
that I knew from Clone Wars and Rebels. I feel like there's still something missing there, and nothing against Rosario Dawson because I think she's amazing, but I think there is something to be said about casting the person who originally voiced a character in animation to help do that transition into the live action version, which is why I think Bo-Katan works so well because it was her from the beginning. But with Ahsoka, it's not just the voice that I'm missing. It's kind of the body movement and how she holds the lightsabers and everything. And there's just kind of something missing for me there. And it's not coming through as much as I
Mhm.
want. So I've kind of just started thinking of her not necessarily being Ahsoka, just being a character. So it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of the show because the show itself is very good. It's gorgeous. The action's there. The soundtrack's fantastic. It's so good to go back to Lothal and to see what it would look like in real life. And it's really good. I'm really enjoying Sabine, actually, which I wasn't necessarily expecting to. And I'm still having also a jarring sense with Hera as well.
Yeah.
And nothing against Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She's fantastic, but also I think she's too young. And Hera looks so young, and I'm not getting
He
this
looks
like
like a
big
baby.
mama energy. Yeah, she looks really, really young, and she's not, there's not this gravitas that you would get from that we got from Hera, years before, and now that she's a general and a mother herself, not just the ghost's, adoptive mother. Now she's this big mama bear from the beginning, and I'm not getting that sense through. Not yet. She's slowly starting to grow on me, but
Mhm.
there's something there about the ghost fam dynamics that isn't necessary. Like the way she talks to Sabine or about Sabine to Ahsoka, it's not what I would necessarily expect Hera to say. And her shock at the Ezra might be alive thing was jarring to me as well because I feel like Hera is the kind of person that would have never given up on Ezra. And yeah, it's surprising that now we have an actual clue, but I don't think she would have given up on him in any sort of way, regardless. So it would have been like, yay, now we have a clue, but not this like shock that, oh, I thought he, was like dead already. So there's still things that, need to grow on me as well. But I love the Loth Cats. Ray Stevenson as Balin Skull is amazing. That was one of the best introductions to one of the darker
Mhm.
characters that we got him with his apprentice Shin Hatfi. It was intimidating. They were imposing straight from the top, and they're not over the top. They're kind of
Mm.
like very calm, cool, and collected, intimidating. Just going about the galaxy, doing whatever they want, and there's something very centered about the characters that I really loved. And obviously, getting a Night Sister
Yes.
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
live action and seeing the traces of the green magic and everything, and we know now, as Mo was saying, with the opening of an entire new galaxy, that they are free to be weird. I mean, we already know Purgles are going to show up. What else is going to happen?
Yes.
So I'm definitely not 100% sold, but I'm in it for the ride and to see what, because they have a really huge opportunity now to change what we know about Star Wars, and I hope they take it.
Awesome. And it's interesting because all the things that you've said, like I've seen other people online bring up. However, like I'm not sure that I 100% like agree with like a lot of that, especially the characterization of some of the characters.
Yeah.
Because and before I get to that, like I guess let's start with my reaction. I mean, I love the show. I was very excited for it. I've
Mm,
loved the saga since Clone Wars. Really was
yeah.
excited for her like during Rebels. So once this show was announced, I'm just like people. I think the cynicism that some people had about this show was the same type of cynicism I had about Andor type of thing. It's just like, oh, why do we need this Ahsoka show when we already had so
Yeah.
much of her? When I with Andor, I was like, why do we need that show? We already know his. So it kind of goes to show, at least to me, that technically we don't need anything. So it's just we didn't need the original Star Wars. So it's just like story. We
Yeah.
just these are stories that we want to tell, and I think we just have to
Yeah.
be open and receptive to what story the story wants to tell us, and I learned that with Andor, and like now, like I'm trying to apply that with all the different shows that come out. So it's like, okay, it may not be a show that I think we quote unquote need, but then again, we don't
Yeah.
need any of the other ones. And so it's just being kind of receptive to what it's there to give us. So for Ahsoka, I was very, very, very open in that sense. The only kind of issue that I had with it going into it was kind of the aesthetics of it, I guess, because one of the big things that were starting to annoy me about Mandalorian was how small it looked because it, relied very heavily on the volume, and it feels like it's on the volume. You kind of feel like you're always like in that little set, as opposed to Andor, where Andor kind of did
Mhm.
very little use of the volume. It's all usually like filmed on location, and Andor film feels very expansive.
Yeah.
So I was worried with Ahsoka that I was going to kind of revert back to that kind of smallness
Yeah.
of Mando, so and feel very volumey. It's just like, oh well, yeah, we have these like wide landscapes, but everyone's moving, in this little constrained
Like
circle,
The
hallway.
circle, in the little
Yeah.
circle.
in a little circle
Yeah.
or one hallway, kind of like Mando
Yeah.
season 2 was all the time.
Yeah.
Eh, but thankfully, my expectations were blown out of the water because the show does not feel. I mean, I think there are moments where you can kind of be like, okay, you're in the volume.
Yeah.
Especially when they're when Balin and Morgan Elsbeth are in the map room. It's literally a sphere. You're in the volume right there,
Yeah.
and you can literally tell
Yeah.
because like you're in that. But in those circumstances, you can get away with it because of the narrative that's built around that
It
set.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
So it makes sense exactly. So in that regard, like I was very, very happy with it because the show feels as expansive as I want Star Wars to feel. I think this is the closest we've ever gotten in Star Wars, and I was going to say animation in Star Wars shows to get the almost that feel from the movies. Because that opening scene, I mean, we get the red crawl and everything, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you guys felt about the red crawl, and we'll get into
I
that.
wasn't
But
expecting it.
but after the crawl, and then we get like the ship and everything, like
Yeah.
it felt like the
Hmm.
movies, and the production
Yeah.
value of the show backs that up. It feels, so high quality, and Dave Filoni nailed the vibe. It feels very, it at least to me. I don't know if you guys agree. The show feels very much like a combination of all three vibes of all of the trilogies. Like you have like some of the vibes from the prequel trilogy in terms of like how shiny and new everything looks, but then like some of the grittiness too of the original trilogy, but then like the aesthetics of the visual effects from the sequel trilogy. I feel like all of those visual cues are kind of compiled in this show in a very neat way that makes it feel very fresh but still familiar. So I was happy with that. I was very happy with the characters too. The only one that I think it's the one that everyone keeps mentioning is Ahsoka, but the problem is that I think we last saw these characters in Rebels. And Rebels, the ending of that show, yeah, the epilogue is now, right, when we're watching the show, but the show
Hmm.
itself ended like years before the Battle of Endor. So, like, all these characters, you've seen them like in one place, and now it's a couple of years removed from that moment. So, it's just like, I don't expect characters to be behaving the exact same way they were. It's just like the Luke thing. People are like, oh, why isn't Luke
Yeah.
30 years later the same Luke as he was from Return of the Jedi? It's like, well, because 30 years changes a person. So that's kind of why I'm not gonna say forgiving because I think that's not the right word here, but accepting
Hmm.
of like why these characters aren't behaving in the way that we would naturally expect them to. And it's just because like I think we're just in a different position and they haven't been given the chance to finally be themselves, right? The idealized versions of themselves that we've kind of built in our minds, especially with Ahsoka. I think Ahsoka, from what we've seen, it is in a dark place or like in a stoic place from everything that's happened from the post Rebels finale and being maybe disillusioned from training Sabine and all these things have kind of brought her into the less optimistic version that we've grown to know. But I think that's going to be the journey, right? In the epilogue of Rebels, we saw Ahsoka the White with the staff and everything. So I think that's the idealized version of Ahsoka that we're kind of building to. So I think that Rosario's characterization is going to end up there, but that's just conjecture at this point. With Hera, I do agree that she was a little maybe like detached at the beginning, but I think that was because like in the first episode, she's not really interacting with Sabine, and she's being the general, so it's like it's been years, so it's this whole thing where I have to be this, this person that projects this persona. But in episode 2, I kind of started getting like those mom Hera vibes, especially when she's the hologram and
Mhm.
talking to Sabine like in the hospital and everything. I started like getting those like traditional Hera vibes. But the character that I think they absolutely nailed 100% is Sabine. I think
Chopper.
Natasha
I
Liu
know.
Bordizzo is doing a spectacular
And
job.
she's getting criticized a lot on the internet, which really surprised me because as soon as she
Really?
opened her mouth, I was like, that's Sabine. That's Sabine, hands down. The movements, everything. I loved her from the beginning. But yeah, I was looking online and she's getting a lot of criticism.
The internet's also a dangerous place because
And it's a
who
dark place sometimes.
who on the internet, right? It's just like one of
Mhm.
these things. Because like interesting that like people are attacking the Asian person, instead of like maybe. So it's kind of like it's fueled by a little bit of discrimination. I don't fucking know,
I don't
but
know.
it's
But
one of
she's
those
nailing Sabine.
definitely.
I was gonna
I'm a
say the
fan
best one is
already.
Chopper though, but but yes,
Hmm?
Huh?
I was gonna say Chopper was number one and then Sabine, but
Oh, Chopper was perfection.
See,
Chopper was
I've never
perfection.
been a fan of Chopper and
Yeah, that's the
Rebels.
problem, Goose. You don't
that's
like
your
Chopper,
problem.
but I've always loved
However,
Chopper because
however,
he's
Who's the
like
they
the
best?
most asshole droid there is.
Exactly.
Love
and
him,
they did
and
him
he
1-to-1, so it's
looks.
kind of hard to not mess him up. I did like the one thing when like he's asking Hera if like she went through
If he,
her stuff, and then he says, "Yes, you did," and you can absolutely like hear him say that, but with the
yeah,
droid voice. So I will give them
yeah,
that. That scene was pretty funny.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
feel in that regard, I feel a little bit like Mo with the characters, where like Mo, you were feeling like some of the character designs going from animation to live action were a little jarring to get used
Yeah.
to the translation. I felt that with Chopper. I feel Chopper's too 1-to-1 from the animation counterpart. It doesn't feel like they kind of filtered him to be
I
like
know.
more,
I like it.
real life. So I'm just
That's why I love it.
like when you place him next to BB-8 or R2D2, he definitely feels like an animated character.
Yeah,
So that that
Which I'm
that for
fine
me
with,
kind of takes
actually.
me
I'm fine
out
with
of.
it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too.
Remember Chopper like never had a memory wipe. It's just this all crazy. Like it
Yeah,
makes sense. It knows how to even like speak some English words. It's like it's been so long with like Terra and
yeah.
like humans. Like it just translate beeps into like words.
I mean,
It curses you. Like
in that
yeah,
context, it is pretty hilarious. I will say
Yeah.
that.
and like I'm with like on the Hera part. I'm with Nani. Like she, I mean, I know it's an alien. We don't know how they age. You know, it's
How they,
possible.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's such like a young. It looks like such a young like actress for like a more mature character it's supposed to be. Like, yeah, you don't see that maturity. It almost seems like fake, like that mom instincts. Like, yeah, you're saying the mom thing, but you don't feel like a mom. Kind of
Yeah, it's like
Looking
when
at how
they
old.
try to like make a character like fake wise. In this
Yeah,
one, it kind of feels like the mama energy is kind of forced. So, I mean, we're only 2 episodes in. I don't want to be overly harsh about it. I'm just telling you how it made me feel, and it
Interesting. But
just.
my
Mhm.
question then to that though, and I think it's gonna be like a twofold question in regards to like one, us watching the show being fans of Rebels, and then two,
Yeah,
people watching the shows and not knowing anything about Rebels. So I'll table that. Do you think that if you hadn't seen Rebels and didn't have that attachment to the original version of the character, you would feel that way, or do you think that this is just like particularly just informed because of how you think that she should act based on how you?
yeah, it is definitely informed in how I think that she should act because going into the show, we don't really know what her relationship is to any of the other characters because it
Hmm.
hasn't really been explained. I think it's gonna be I think it was a smart call to kind of like redo the epilogue just because then you
Hmm.
set the base for where you want the characters to be in this show and you know where you want them to end up because clearly we're not going to you they changed that epilogue from Rebels, which is
Hmm.
something that had really confused me because as you were saying we had gotten at the end of Rebels that the white cloaked Ahsoka with the staff, and then when she started showing up in live action in the Mandalorian, all these things were like, well, where's this Ahsoka that we ended up with, like what happened. And when this show started, and we find out that she had taken Sabine on as an apprentice, and that clearly something had gone wrong, and they had a falling out. I thought this was after the Rebels epilogue, and
Hmm.
then because of that falling out, and whatever time they spent trying to search for Ezra, and that failed, that's why Ahsoka had become a little bit more disillusioned, and we're getting a different version than we got with the the cowl and the white and the whole thing. But now, clearly, with episode 2, they did basically frame by frame that
Hmm.
last scene from Rebels, except now we don't get, the robed and white Ahsoka. And as you were saying, I'm probably thinking that that's where the season's gonna end up, or that's the journey that Ahsoka has to go through to get herself to there. But it I'm glad that, that's clarified for me, that that's why we have this Ahsoka, because we're kind of retconning, what the end of Rebels showed us Ahsoka to be. And I think we were talking a little bit about it before the episode, and he said that it made sense because maybe Filoni thought that he was never going to get to develop Ahsoka again, and that's the version of Ahsoka that he wanted at the end, so that's how
Hmm.
she ended up in
Hmm.
Rebels. But now that he has the opportunity to do an entire show about her, and he gets to flesh out how she gets to that point better.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm trying to like stop trying to force Ahsoka what I want her to be, or where I want her to be.
You can't.
But
You have to accept people for who they are.
I know. But it's so hard because
And not
we
who you
are
want them.
so informed before, we fell in love with these characters so hard. Like, I mean, my hair, every single hair in my body stood up when we saw the Phantom, because they
Hmm.
did
Hmm.
such a good job, and to feel like you're part of the family again. Like, I started screaming when we saw Seb in
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Mandalorian, and all that's informed by the love that we have for these characters. And I
Right.
think the way that they do it now, and that they establish kind of that base in the first 2 episodes, because the show could be very negatively affected by the fact that a lot of people haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels, and
Hmm.
you don't really go into a show attached to any of the characters. And it could go either way. Like, if it's done well, and just with this show, you get to express how these relationships work and how important these people are to each other, then I think organically people will love the characters as
Hmm.
well. But if they expect people to only love them if they also love them from Rebels and Clone Wars, then it's going to negatively affect, because a lot of people don't watch the animated stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it could go either way, I think.
Which then is like now my inverse question, coming from the show, like from the outside, right? Let's say like our parents or our siblings or our friends
Yeah.
or people that might be Star Wars fans, but they only watch the movies or Mandalorian, right? Only the live
Yeah.
action things. They haven't
Yeah.
seen Rebels or the Clone Wars. Do you feel, try to think of it objectively, obviously, do you
Yeah.
feel that the show can stand like independent of that, and that it did a good job to give you the information that you needed about these characters to kind of hit the ground running, to kind of understand where everyone is and continue with the show? Mo, what did you think about that?
I think objectively, no.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah. I have to agree.
they like I know they tried. They like to give you a summary of everything that happens, but if you have no clue of like who Thrawn, who Ezra, what happens, like you'll be like, who the hell are
What
these
is
people?
happening?
Why am I?
Yeah.
Why do I even care? Like we just came out from the war. Like
Well, but to counter that, when you start A New Hope and you have the crawl, it tells you all these characters. It's the exact same thing. It's like, oh, who are these characters and why should I care about them? So if we can start,
but there's a build up to it. Like you don't. It's only one character you're looking for. You're looking for a princess, and then
Mhm,
you're looking for the next. Like it's not like here. Like oh, you're looking for at least two missing characters. You're supposed bad guy, and you're supposed like hero in exile, because that's what they
mhm,
are. And
Hmm.
then like all of a sudden like combine like whoever is coming to Ahsoka that hasn't seen Rebels probably is coming from Mandalorian.
mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah, for sure.
it's all of a sudden it's a complete break of like what everything that's happening, and then it's like oh like, we're going to get to a different like to me it's exciting that we're going to a different galaxy, but
Mhm.
Then I'll be like, we just started here. Why are we completely
Why are
leaving?
we already?
like we just started a journey here, and we're oh yeah, f that. We're going somewhere else. Like it makes sense for fans that are old and
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
know the canon. Like yeah, we've seen the stories in this galaxy. Let's go to another galaxy. But someone new, it's like, wait, I just started to put the pieces together of what happened after the war, and now you're telling me that, oh yeah, let's go to another galaxy. Forget about all of that. Like I think objectively, a new person coming in will be like,
Yeah.
okay,
Hmm.
like this, it's just it's a continuation of Rebels. That's what it is.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm. Nani.
and it's not made in like the prequel way of A New Hope.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Nani, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the problem is because there is so much backstory that's kind of necessary to get to where we are with these people. And yeah, you're right, Goose. There's stories that have a bunch, like when the original trilogy came out, the prequels didn't exist, and there's all the backstory that we are completely unaware of. But we're getting characters that are kind of very little informed about what's going on, and we learn with them. Like Luke has no idea what's happening, and we get to kind of find out with him what's happening. But that's not the case with any of these characters. All these characters are informed about what's happening. And I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of people latched onto Mandalorian right away, even if they didn't know anything about Star Wars, because it's kind of a character with a clean slate.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, you don't have all this baggage that he's been dragging around with a lot of these series. And then
Hmm.
these characters, even though, again, they're trying to let you know kind of where things are, but I don't think they're doing a good enough job about it. And it's a double bladed sword, obviously, because if you get too descriptive, too slow at explaining what had happened in Clone Wars and Rebels, you're going to lose those fans because they're going to be like, I already know what this happened. You're not bringing anything new to the table. What are you doing? Just remaking what I already know into live
Hmm.
action, which doesn't work. But if you're too dependent on people knowing about all that baggage in the past, then it's going to be hard for them to be interested from the beginning because they should have no idea, like, who Ezra is, why do people care, why is everybody so obsessed with finding Thrawn. People don't really know that Anakin even had an apprentice,
Hmm.
so who is this person, why should I care, so I don't know. I've talked to people who aren't Star Wars fans and they don't really have any intention of watching the show. So it's I think this is more for us in the animated, or who love the animated series. But and it is. It's the culmination of the Filoniverse. It's clear.
Yeah, that's what
But
it is.
they need to be able to, and again, it's only 2 episodes, to kind of better inform what the plot actually is and what the intention of the show is, to kind of separate it. So if you're a new viewer and you have no idea what happened before, you can still be attracted to watching this new story.
Hmm.
But I think it's still too tied to the baggage that it runs
I mean, I
Let's
think I passionately disagree with everything
with.
everyone has said, just
Yeah.
because I think it comes to like the perspective of like how we are consuming like all these stories in like this modern era of interconnected storytelling, and like to an extent we find like with the MCU or DC to failing degrees, and Star Wars or not, well, Star Trek's not actually, I mean, Star Trek's connected but not in the same way as like these stories are. We're kind of used to being like, okay, well, you have to kind of know in this linear progressive fashion some of these information so that you can enjoy the stories, and I kind of don't see it that way. I see it that you there are different points in which you can begin your journey with these stories and be able to either enjoy them for what they are individually, like the sequel trilogy or the
Yeah.
prequel trilogy, the original trilogy. I think you can watch each of those independently and enjoy them for what they are, or you can be like, oh, okay, well, obviously there's a connected aspect to them that have more stories that come into them that I will get more enjoyment of if I then watch it. Because obviously, if you watch the sequel trilogy on its own, there's all the baggage of the original trilogy, but that trilogy makes sense on its own. Like you could watch it on its own, like understand it. But if you want to add more nuance to it, you watch the original trilogy, and obviously enriches that. And same with the prequel trilogy, right? You don't need to watch the Clone Wars to understand the prequel trilogy or vice versa. But if you watch both, it enhances all of that. So one thing I would like to do is actually talk to a normal person that doesn't follow
And
Star
ask
Wars,
them, yeah,
because
what they thought of the first two
I
episodes.
don't
Yeah.
know normal people, and the normal people that I do know do not watch these shows. So I would like to meet one of them and be like, okay, watch this. Don't watch anything else. I want you to watch Ahsoka and tell me if you like understand the character and their wants and needs and like where the story's going. Because I felt like the first time I was watching, and especially the second time I rewatched it, I was just like, okay, are they giving the information that they need to give to like understand like the motivations of each character and like some background? And I felt that that's a yes. Like they give you the crawl so you can know like the mythic background of the story and like everything you need to know. The Imperial remnants, they're searching for this object. Ahsoka's a former Jedi, blah blah blah. And then like through the rest of the show, they give you like the context of like, oh, she was Anakin's apprentice, and obviously that's gonna come in at some other point in the series because we know Hayden
Oh yeah.
Christensen's coming back in some degree, so there's going to be extra added context to that. And then each character has a line or two or like some moment of dialogue that contextualizes their past journey and their and their wants for the coming of the show. Like with Sabine, we get that she trained with Ahsoka and that they're jaded, they haven't seen each other for years, and that affects like them moving forward. With Hera, she's a general and she's been doing all these things. uh, Same with Ahsoka. So like I feel like the show did give you like the minimum information you needed to kind of start. And then I feel like it's actually kind of a good way to do it, because then if you're watching the show and you want to know more, hey, there's this great show called Rebels, and you'll get so much more enjoyment out of it than you go back and
Mhm.
recontextualize it, and hopefully make that same journey for fans of the prequels and be like, oh crap, there's this show called The Clone Wars that's gonna make the movies even better for me. I think I think maybe I'm being too kind to the show in a way that like I wasn't being to Andor in the lead up to it. But Andor turned me around, and I think that Ahsoka kind of got me hook, line, and sinker. Especially because my baby boy in blue Thrawn is gonna be
Yeah.
on it, so I'm really looking forward to that.
You think he's gonna show up in season one? Oh,
Well, we know he's gonna show up in season one because of the trailers.
oh, I
Yeah.
haven't seen the trailer, so I don't know.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So, oh, sorry.
Spoilers alert. Yes.
But it
I
could
mean,
be
it's not.
minor.
It could
But
be.
it
It
could be
could be.
really minor because I think it's only 8 episodes, and
It's
we're
only eight
already two
episodes, but
episodes
it's
in. Yeah.
supposed to be a limited series.
Oh, so it's supposed to be
But
one season, as far as we know.
Alleg-
Or
that can always
allegedly.
change. That can always change. But it's supposed to just be a standalone thing, which I think doesn't make sense, because I mean it's like the story's a little too big for only one season. But then we have to
Well,
keep in mind that there's
unless
the
Filoni
Filoni
wants
movie.
the film, yeah, that's where he probably will conclude the Filoniverse.
I wish I'm not sure how that's gonna work.
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure
that's
either.
besides the point. But like for me, that Filoni movie's gonna be like lame Star Wars Avengers. Is there gonna be like
Yeah.
that scene at the end with Captain America? Who's gonna be the Captain America? Din Djarin is gonna be like Avengers. What's up? I feel like it's
No,
gonna be. I feel it's gonna
I
be
feel like
lame.
it's gonna be like that. Yep, and it's gonna be lame if they do that. Yeah.
But whatever. That's a couple of years down the line. We don't have to
Yeah,
worry
that's
about that right now.
we don't have
that's
to
not
worry
right
about
now.
it. And if it comes, you don't have to watch it. You know that.
That's true. That is true. That is true. That's a good
Okay,
point, and that's a good point for everyone watching. If you don't like something, you don't have
You
to
know,
watch it.
don't watch it. Well, anyway, going back to Ahsoka. Okay. By the way, when they did that at the end for our friend Ray, I started crying. It's so sad that we have lost such an amazing actor,
Mhm.
and he's pulling off that character to a T.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to ask, because I know there was some debate about it online, but I'm not into social media or anything, so I'm not really clear about
Yeah.
what was happening. But they're lightsabers because they look a little orange instead
Mhm.
of red. Do you think that's on purpose because it's like degraded Jedi sabers that they kind of maybe didn't necessarily bleed the kyber crystals correctly or something, and it is that color on purpose? Because the Inquisitor's lightsaber did look actual red.
It's definitely on
So
purpose, because Filoni
okay.
confirmed that it's on purpose.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He hasn't said why, obviously, because Filoni's not going to reveal anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is a purpose to why
Yeah.
the lightsabers are red,
Yeah.
orange, or
Yeah.
blood
Whatever it
orange, or
is.
whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because we got Hugh Yang confirming that Baylan Skoll's lightsaber is one that he made,
yeah.
as a Jedi in the past.
Which
And
how
obviously he
cool
probably
is having Hu
I
Yang?
know. Hugh Yang is perfection. I can't believe David Tennant is voicing him, and it's so good. The character design is fantastic. I know, but it's good. It's good
The money
choices.
is like,
Alone, I'm
hey,
happy.
I'll
Money.
reprice it and give me money. And then he
Give
does
me
it.
money.
And he can
No, but the
record that in his
character,
closet, He just has to do the
Yeah.
voice.
it's amazing. But it's so glad that we got to see a character
Mhm.
like Hugh Yang come back too. There's so much, lore there into the building of the lightsabers. That was always one of my favorite
Mhm,
parts in Clone Wars and stuff when we got to see, the building of
And that's
lightsabers.
what I
So
like about having brought Hu Yang back is that they brought
yeah,
him in that same capacity from Clone Wars.
yeah.
It's
hmm
like he's not like, oh well, this is just we're gonna bring this droid back, and you're gonna know if you're a fan that he's the droid from Clone Wars, but he's gonna be doing something completely different. No, I like that
Yeah,
he's
it's like, no,
the
I know
teaching
about
droid,
sabers.
and he knows about
Yeah.
sabers, and he has the thing,
hmm
and I'm just like, chef's kiss. I'm like, perfect.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
good.
And I like also the changes to Ezra's lightsaber. That's something that I really wanted to mention because Ezra's second lightsaber, the green one, which is the one
Mm,
Sabine wields, is
yeah.
probably like my favorite lightsaber design from Star Wars Rebels. But when I saw the changes that they did for the
Yeah.
show, that kind of looked more like Cal Kestis's lightsaber from Fallen Order. Which in my mind, I'm just like, okay, one, sell more toys. But then two, I think the practical reason
Yeah.
was because of the design of the original emitter from Rebels. In live action, you can't do it that way because the blade won't, they can't put the stunt blade in there. So they had to change it for practical reasons so that they can, use it in a practical way. It was just a conjecture on my part. But I love how they did that, if my theory is correct, and then justified it with, oh, Sabine made
Yeah.
those modifications because now she
Yeah.
made it her lightsaber and all that
Which
stuff.
makes
So,
sense
which
because
makes
you're keeping,
sense.
a little bit of legacy because you're bringing back Ezra's, but then it's also Sabine's because she's made her own modifications that are good
Hmm
for her. So it's kind of like bringing those two bridges together.
Well, I see what you did there. Oh my god, that Ezra Bridger pun. Uh, and I like that it's Hu Yang who like mentions and note and like
Yeah. Yeah.
calls upon the modifications, and it's just again, it's just
hmm
like that's his character from
Yes.
Clone Wars, so it's delicious. And the quip that he has to Hera, like during that scene, I just loved it when like Sabine is doing, trying to get the original location of the HK droid, and it's about to blow up, and Hera's just like, yeah, go for it, and then Hu Yang's just like, yeah, because you're a hologram.
You don't
That
care.
was hilarious.
That part was like also like jarring. Like Ahsoka just saw like how crazy these explosions are and how many things it will destroy, and then she's like, "Yeah, F it, open here, like in the middle of a hospital. Like I don't care if people die. Like
She knows. She can see the future. Remember, she's a Jedi. She
Uh-huh.
knows.
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah,
Massive destructive power. It's
that
fine.
but
It's
maybe
fine.
it's fine.
It's fine. It's
I'm
fine.
no longer a Jedi. I don't have to concern myself for the safety of others.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm a former Jedi.
Nothing
Yeah,
happened. It was fine. Hu
it
Yang
was fine.
disconnected it.
I
Which
mean,
actually,
that's but it's still such a BS thing. Like, even
yeah,
if nothing happens, take precautions. Like, there's a hospital. There are people there.
yeah.
Maybe it wasn't a hospital. Maybe it was
No,
something
they
else.
were in the middle of Lothal. They were in the
Yeah,
city. They were
yeah.
not anywhere.
Which I
But
get,
the head was not the bomb from the opening. So
true,
we don't
fine,
know like
but
how big that explosion would have been. Probably considerably smaller.
Yeah, but
yeah,
considerably smaller compared to that epic explosion that we just saw. It's still
yeah,
it
because
will
you
take
would
out the whole
expect,
building.
Chopper to be an asshole because he is, because he
Exactly.
literally says that when they're flying away, it's like, just shoot it down. It's like, I can't shoot it down. There's an entire town below it. And, from Chopper, you expect it.
Chopper wants results.
Choppers
Just shoot it down. Just shoot it down.
down.
Results. See, and if they had followed Chopper's advice, the Morgan
Well,
Elspeth wouldn't have gotten
Chopper's
the
been through
hyperdrive.
so many wars, Like Chopper is a true general as well. Like Hera's a general, but Chopper is also a general. Like
He's the only one that has the will to carry
to carry
Do what
on.
needs
to
to be
carry on
done.
I feel like they maybe Chopper and Thrawn might become like best friends, and then that's when the end of the whole
maybe. But
And justify the means.
Yep.
speaking of people who like are friends, Marok has I mean, not Marek. Balin has some friends in Marek, who is a former Inquisitor, who now serves as a mercenary. There's lots of theories on the internet. So lots of people are theorizing that maybe it's Ezra. Some people are.
Ugh.
Our friend Alex from Star Wars Explained says that it's the eighth brother from Rebels, which I think is actually the most likely one. Other people are saying that maybe this is the canon version of Galen Merrick from The Force Unleashed, because it showed up like in the credits that Sam Witwer provided additional voices for the show. Some people are saying that it's Barris. We're gonna finally gonna know what happened to Barris after the end of the Clone Wars. Do you guys have any theories, or do you even care who Marok is in Ahsoka? Nani, start with you.
I had no idea that this discussion was happening until you just mentioned it, to be completely honest.
The internet discusses everything. Masked
I know.
character, we don't see their face. We must speculate ad nauseum.
Well, I mean, to me, the character is already compelling. One, they look super cool.
Yeah.
Two, the way they fight is really awesome. I think some of the best choreography so far has been him.
Mhm.
And when the lightsaber, the second side turns on, the actually throwing it and calling it
Oh,
back. I
and
mean,
how
so much
Ahsoka
of it
dodges it
was
is so cool. It's like so
without even
casual.
like,
So good.
it's so good, and it's just like classic Inquisitor everything. So I don't feel we need to speculate it to death. We're gonna find out, or we're not gonna find out who he is. I don't think
Correct.
at the end of the
That's
day it affects the story all that much. But who knows? Maybe it turns up to be something like insane, and we're all shocked. But aside from that, I just think he's a really cool character so far, and that's the end of my speculation.
Mo. How about you?
You know what? I hadn't thought about it, but this moment, we like a young Palpatine clone. You know.
Oh my god, I hope not. I hope not. I did have an actually moment, because some people are saying like, oh, what if it's Rey's dad? And I'm just like, actually, if you had read Shadow of the Sith, you would know that that's not possible. But I restrained myself because I don't
What,
want to be that person.
what if it's our boy, the one and the only Jar Jar Binks, continuing the dark legacy?
I'm gonna go
Oh,
with
Dark
no,
Jar
because
Jar.
his helmet would be different.
We're not.
His helmet would need to account for the stock eyes. So I'm gonna just on anatomy alone. I'm gonna go with no.
We don't know what's the power of the dark side. Maybe
Maybe it changes your maybe
shapeshifter. You know.
maybe it's Kelleran Beck. He went to the dark side after
Yeah.
saving
Oh
Grogu because
wow.
he couldn't find him again, and that way you can get your Jar Jar in there. No, I do think that it might be I do think Alex is right. It's probably the eighth brother, but I do think that they might pull that little twist and just make it oh my god, I forgot the name of the guy from The Force Unleashed, just so fans are just like, oh, there's a canon version of this character now, and now you can calm the calm the f down.
Count your
Uh,
tits.
but ultimately, honestly, I thought that the Inquisitor was gonna die like in the first episode. I thought it was gonna be like a false flag, red herring type of thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you think this is gonna be something that's gonna be like a big villain, but it's just like actually it's opening scene. It's Ahsoka fighting him, and then that's done and over with, and then we move on to the bigger, better bad guys
Hmm.
like Thrawn or whatever. But I was surprised that that wasn't the case, and that he's gonna
Yeah.
factor in, he or she, I guess, factor in more in the show. So we shall see. One other thing I want to discuss with everybody. We're in the Eye of Sion is what the ring is called, right?
Yeah.
We're in the Eye of Sion. Obviously, the design of the ship is very different. And one thing that I noticed about it, I don't know if you guys noticed about it, but I kind of wanted to discuss it because it ties into the galaxy that we're going to explore. When the hologram of oh my god, Balin and his apprentice and Shin show up, it's a
Hmm.
very different style of hologram projection from what we've seen in Star Wars
Yeah.
at all. Like usually we have like the blue flickery light thing,
Yeah.
but here it
I think
looked
that
like
looked amazing.
a
Like the
gel.
grainy,
It was
or
like a
yeah, that
gel
kind
or
of
something.
moves. Yeah.
What did you guys? I mean, obviously now you noticed it, Mo. Did you notice it at first? And like how? What did you think of having holograms portrayed differently, specifically on this scene?
New tech, baby. I mean, we're
New
going. Right. Like no, I thought it was like some like Dathomir, like extra galactic like
Yeah, because
technology.
I think it had like a little bit of a green tinge to
Yeah,
it.
it
So it
had the
could
green
be some
tinge.
kind of like Night Sister technology combined with magic kind of thing. Because they're kind of hinting at that maybe, the Night Sisters are originally maybe from the other galaxy.
Hmm.
So it'd be really cool if that's, this is our technology. It's way better than regular holograms. It looks more alive. So,
I mean, it's possible that technically when they portray the witches of Dathomir, they seem to be like more tribal. Maybe they're like
Yeah.
this
mhm.
is like the exodus of, and that's
Oh,
why the Eye of
that's a
Saya
good point. Maybe they're
is
exactly. Maybe they're like in
Right.
Mandalorian. They're like the
the
this is the way
exiles.
helmet Mandalorians who like keep the old ways.
Yeah, and then the other galaxy combine their magic with technology.
I
Who
like
knows
that.
what we'll
That could
see.
be cool. Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's
And
that's what I gathered from it. That it was like some Night Sister technology or something.
yeah.
It's interesting because originally, and like in the trailers, we didn't get to see that hologram, but we did get to see the bridge, and obviously the bridge is like very curvy and gold and all
Right.
that stuff.
Mhm.
So in my mind, I thought like, oh, this is Schiss technology, which is the race that Thrawn is a part
Thrawn.
of. Because at the point, I'm just at that point, I'm just like, oh, well, we're going to the unknown region, so Thrawn is back with the Schiss, so he's in a ship from the Schiss Ascendancy and all that stuff. But now that we know that he's in another
Mhm.
galaxy, it's just like, oh, so maybe that technology isn't Schiss at all. Maybe that technology is something completely different. And something else that people have been talking about online is some connections with the Cepho from Jedi Fallen Order, which, if you haven't played the game, it's like the ancient race that Cal Kestis goes to their temples to explore, and it's a race that was from a different galaxy, came to this galaxy, like to the Star Wars galaxy, and like set up their temples, but then had to leave it because they were corrupted by the dark side and whatnot. So it's interesting to see how that game has already a species of Force users that had to leave this galaxy, and also a game where not only do you have them, but then also have the Night Sisters. So I wonder if like Filoni's gonna. I don't think so because Filoni's not one to do that type of thing. He usually ignores other stuff and just does whatever he wants. But like if he's gonna like tie this into like the video games a little bit and like take that race and see like what their connection with the Night Sisters are and see what is happening like in the this new galaxy that we know nothing about. And is it tied with the Mortis gods? Is this the Mortis gods transcend that plane where in that planet they were from and were are actually physically manifested in the other galaxy, and that's
Oh,
just their technology, the race of Mortis children or whatever the fuck it is. And
Like,
that's just going crazy, assuming that Filoni is gonna go crazy in this new galaxy.
crazy.
let's hope so.
I really hope he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I'm still like confused. I don't, like in the red scroll,
Hmm.
it said like Thrawn wanted to galvanize. I'm like, does he want to like chuck them? Does he want to like turn them with zinc and coat them in like shiny material? Like when I read it, I was like, I'm sorry, since I'm taking chemistry, I was
It's
like
the other definition.
like galvanizing is like when you use shot to like turn something like shiny with zinc, and I'm like, oh, like
It's
maybe
the other one. It's the
he
other one.
was like he was a chrome army. Like,
I mean, he is getting it. The ship is pretty chrome.
that ship is really chrome, so I don't know. Maybe that's the plan.
One last thing before we start wrapping up. Obviously, we see Ezra's hologram, and it's a different message from the message that he recorded at the end of Rebels. It's one that he recorded specifically for Sabine.
Mhm.
We know that everyone's racing to find Thrawn and or Ezra. We know that Thrawn's showing up, right? Because we've seen it in the trailers. But
Mhm.
and probably Ezra as well, because they already cast somebody. Uh, do we think Ezra's falling to the dark side? Do we think he's still on the light? Do we think he's friends with Thrawn? What do we think that it's Ezra's current situation?
It's been what, like 15 years?
Eh, that's a good question. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
Let's look it up while you guys talk.
Okay, well, uh, I think like if you're gonna like follow the threads from like Rebels, that Ezra already was pretty much almost like Darth Maul's apprentice. So we already know that Ezra's okay dabbling in like understanding the greater aspects of the Force, like not just like, oh, this is the Jedi code and don't look around. Like so I like he's already like an open-minded person, and we already know Thrawn will just make whatever is the best decision for survive. So if it's
Mhm.
making
Mhm.
friends with Athora in the whole galaxy, like like it makes sense that they'll either be like in a hate love relationship, or they'll actually like legitimately like
Yeah, it's been
get
like 10
past
years.
their
Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's what, how much, 10
Yeah.
years?
Around. Yeah.
Yeah, like 10 years, and to them they might just think like we're never going back to our galaxy, like
Mhm.
at
Hmm.
this moment, like it could just be like they started afresh, or like it doesn't make sense that they'll hold grudges for 10 years.
Thrawn is a very practical person, so I don't
Yeah,
see him
Thrawn is
Yeah.
being.
practical. Ezra,
Practical, logical.
practical, logical. Like
Hmm.
he's gonna grow in the next 10 years and be like what, 30 something. So he'll be like older, wiser. Be like, you know what? I have to deal with what it is. Like I see them like being friends, or at least in that like convenience relationship that we have to be each other's like support, because
Hmm.
we have nobody else to like lay our backs on.
Do you guys remember this movie, the Lost in Space movie that came out like in the
Yeah.
late 90s, early 2000s? You remember Gary Oldman's the bad guy in that movie. You remember
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when they go into like the time thing and they go into the future and Gary Oldman turned into like the big Spider-Man
Yeah.
thing. And then, but he has like the little Will Robinson is like his, friend or whatever. What if it's something like that where like Thrawn actually becomes like this big evil bad person, but then Ezra is convinced that he's someone that he has to follow, and it's like this toxic relationship where like they're had this parental relationship, but it's very toxic, obviously, because Thrawn
Yeah.
maybe I like to always say that he's an anti-villain, that he's not a bad guy in the classic sense, but maybe like in this new galaxy he loses his hinges and it actually goes into super bad guy territory and it becomes like something like that. I don't
He's like
know.
the new tyrant of the new galaxy.
Maybe, I don't know. Nani, what do you think?
I think it could go either way, honestly, and I think a lot of it would have to do with if they were actually together during their exile, or if they just like went their separate ways once they got
Mhm.
there. So obviously there wouldn't be influence amongst each other, and they could have like ended up on opposing sides of whatever is going on the other side. But I think if they did actually spend that time together, that they could have influenced each other a lot, just
Mhm.
because they are both pretty open-minded people. Like Mo was saying, Ezra himself, had already been tempted through Darth Maul, but there
Mhm.
was always this balance from his relationship with Kanan, and knowing that Kanan actually, sacrificed himself, and Ezra sacrificed himself to save his family as well. And just because I think he understands different aspects of the Force because of his, connection to the different creatures. I think he knows that the Force is way more than what the Jedi have told him. So I think he would be open to not necessarily being strict Ezra, just straight Jedi, like Mo was saying as well. Like he's open to both sides of the Force, and that not necessarily everything's black and white. I think Thrawn is similar as well. He wasn't necessarily part of the Empire because he drank the Kool Aid and thought that the best way to you know rule is through the Empire. It's just he was doing what he thought was best for his people. And if in the new galaxy there isn't the presence of the Empire, I think it would have to do with you know what the situation on the other galaxy is. Is
Mhm.
there like an all powerful something similar to the Galactic Empire kind of thing, or is it all more republics, or is it a bunch of planets with no organization that are currently at war with each other? Like all of that, I think will have to do
Oh shit! I like that. That sounds crazy. It's gonna be
with how
fun.
it is. Like, yeah, are we getting? Because it could be something more like Firefly, which is cowboys in space
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
and very old
Ooh.
Wild West trying to survive. So, and if the ruling structure, it could be like the queens are the Night Sisters and they're all powerful. So it's just open to possibilities, I think, and it's gonna do a lot with what it was that they were confronted and what they
Yeah.
have had to survive for the last 10 years. And if for them it has been 10 years. Because sometimes when you're changing, gags, like you were saying, well, we don't know the physics of this, so we don't know how time
Yeah.
works over there. So maybe for them it was instantaneous, or maybe they've been around for way longer than 10 years.
Or
We
maybe,
have
yeah,
no clue.
it's possible they get there and they're all dead. Like,
No, I
Oh
don't.
god.
I like that idea, but I don't
no,
think
no,
they're
but,
gonna
but, but,
do
but
that.
check it out, check it out. What if they find, they go and it's like, it's been
A
like,
dead galaxy.
no, but the other way around. It's been like few generations since like the arrival of Thrawn and Ezra, and like
Oh,
how
okay.
they became like, you'll still see like statues of them and like maybe like their family, like their long descendants, and like
I
the,
like that,
they'll
but
be like the legend, like the legendary mythical beings that, yeah, they came with the Purgils and like it's
Establish themselves as gods.
yeah, established
Yeah.
themselves. I mean, it makes sense. Like
that's pretty cool, actually.
you have a
Yeah.
force
I'm visualizing that, and I was like,
a force powerful Jedi and a super strategical. Like
Mm.
they can do what Darth Vader wanted to do, control the galaxy with his son. Like it's possible they actually became that. The
interesting.
whole galaxy now, like it's been like thousands of years in the future for that galaxy, so they're long dead, but their empire remains forever strong.
Oh wow.
And
Interesting.
then be like, oh shit, we should not bring these people back to our
We should
galaxy.
not be here. Yeah, we should not be here right now.
We made a mistake. We opened the bridge to our galaxy for them to
Yeah.
come.
If that's not what ends up happening, you should write that as fan fiction for sure, because that's pretty
Amazing.
cool. Because
Yeah.
because if you start that as a fan fiction and it starts as a Star Wars fan fiction, you can change it to change the things from Star Wars to be something else. I could see you being a best-selling author, because that's a good idea. Get that going. I know you're busy with school, but
Yeah.
Oh, but maybe my breaks, I'll start writing it. It does sound like a cool idea, though.
it
Like,
is. It
It
is.
is. It is a very cool idea. Yes. Yes. Always moments of
little
genius.
The Mobius strip keeps
Oh yeah.
unraveling.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this has been like an excellent conversation. Like, I am definitely looking forward for an episode 3. I don't know if anyone had any closing thoughts before we wrap up for today.
I this if you did ask me if I hated something at the beginning, I don't know why I hate the end crawls. It's like so like Game
I
of
love the end crawls. The only good end credits in all of the Star Wars shows.
You see, I was like, just keep the whole plain Star Wars thing you've always done. Just give us a black screen, like. But then now there's like it's all like the whole Game of Thrones thing, like looking at the map and like jumping from side to side. It's like so cheesy. I hated it.
Oh, I
That's
love that. I think these are the only good ones.
Uh,
Because the fonts are just like beautiful. The Kevin Kiner music is just incredible. Because let's talk about that. Like, the music on the show is just on point.
yeah. Oh yeah.
The only thing that I did not like wholeheartedly, that I would say like this was bad, is the title card. I think it sucks. And especially like in that first episode, that was such a missed opportunity when like Balin gets Morgan out of jail, and then they're talking about finding the map or whatever, and then she's like, oh, or he asks, I don't know who asked each other, like, oh, who's the person that's gonna find the map? And I thought they were just gonna cut to black and bam, and there's the title
Ahsoka.
card, and then they just like Ahsoka Tano, and then they just walk out for like a couple more seconds, and then the title card. I'm like, what the? Just don't even say the name. Just cut to the title card. That was a missed opportunity, and I will criticize that. I know I've been reacting very positively to the show, but on that specific instance, I'm like, that was stupid, Filoni.
you missed it.
You missed it. Yeah, you missed it.
You missed it, and the title card sucks. It's just
That's what
wow.
happens. That's Filoni. Sometimes gets too busy, doesn't come back to us for like feedback.
Yeah, he hasn't texted us in a while.
Yeah.
That's the
Like,
problem.
what were you thinking?
He's like,
Or
Dave,
we
We would have
we could have
yeah,
given you some quick notes,
It's just
through
some
through
quick
Zoom.
pointers. Mhm.
Just listen to
not
us.
nothing
You'll
too
go far,
crazy.
kid.
Yeah.
Annie, what about you? Any last words of wisdom?
No, I'm actually looking forward to continue to watch it more than I thought. So that's a good part.
Usually that's what happens when we have like these discussions. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe there's a little bit more.
But we'll see. We'll see. I don't think it's a lost cause about these characters. We'll see if they grow on me. But aside from that, I mean, the show is enjoyable. So I just need to like get out of my own head and stop expecting them to act how I want them to act. And I think that's all I can do because the show itself so far is good. So we'll just see how unafraid they are to take it in weird directions.
Yeah.
Because again, if they don't, missed opportunity it would be.
100% agree.
Yep.
Right, that's great. So I guess with that, sign us off. I mean, we're definitely very excited to continue this journey and to have it once again with Mo. So Mo, thank you so much for volunteering to come back and complete the triad as the ghost families being reunited here
Reunited.
because I feel like we're going into like the Fast and the Furious moment of Star Wars where it's all about
Familia.
family. It's all about family now.
Bravo.
It's very poignant. So thank you.
Bring
for
some
joining us.
Coronas and we'll just have a barbecue. It's all good.
Yes.
Some medallas
Well,
in our
until
case.
next
though.
time, we are Triad of the Force. Remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, ring that bell. Let us know what you've been thinking about Ahsoka. We have no idea when this will actually be released so that you can comment, even if
Right.
it's like done. It doesn't matter. We still want to have the discussion. So we are Triad of the Force once again, completed for this limited series. And until next time, may the Force be with you.